Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Gerard Toal and I am a faculty member at Virginia Tech's National Capital Region campus, and I'm here to tell you about my course Topics in Political Geography, which will be taught in the spring of 2017, totally online. I just want to briefly tell you a little bit about the course. Let me first get the texts, because after much deliberation I've finally whittled it down to a reasonable number of texts. So here we go. Okay, so these are the texts that made the cut for the course. It's a graduate course, so I expect that you will read the equivalent of about 5 journal articles per week, or a medium-sized book. Small to medium-sized book. This is a small to medium-sized book. Now, the course is an online class, and it is organized into 5 different modules. So let me tell you a little bit about those modules. First module tells you about some of the themes in contemporary political geography. I'm describing it theorizing territory, population, security. So we have a series of readings which are going to be provided for you on Canvas, and then we're going to read this little book, which is a theory book, before looking at a case study. And the case study is going to be of Lviv, and we're going to read this terrific history which has just come out recently, but it illustrates a lot of very, very important themes concerning territory and biopolitics. And I'll explain what I mean by those. So that's going to be the first module. The second module deals with what I'm calling a nation in fragments, but it's essentially situations where, and we've had 2 examples of it in the late 20th century, where a communist federal state collapses, in the case of Yugoslavia or the Soviet Union, and you have the emergence of a dominant state nationalism, this dominant state within that particular communist federation. Serbia in the case of Yugoslavia, Russia in the case of the Soviet Union. That dominant state discovering a form of nationalism which in certain instances leads to tremendous problems, because that nationalism sees the nation as fragmented beyond the actual territory of the resultant state after the collapse, and then that leads to tremendous problems. Now, the breakup of the Soviet Union wasn't as violent as the breakup of Yugoslavia in the popular imagination, although in certain places the breakup of the Soviet Union was violent, and even the violence had begun before the breakup of the Soviet Union. We're going to examine the Russian nationalism that developed in the wake of the breakup of the Soviet Union. So the emphasis is going to be more on Russia than it is on Serbia in that particular module. And we're reading 2 excellent books that have come out fairly recently on this issue. One by Financial Times journalist Charles Clover, and then the other, which is Vuvacic's book, Nationalism, Myth and the State in Russia and Serbia. And this is a more academic analysis. Then we're going to move on to what I'm calling affective geopolitics, and we're going to use my own text, which has just come out in my own book here, as the anchoring text, and then I'm going to provide a series of articles for you to look at the case of Russia today and the Russian state, and how it's seeking to manage its relations with its neighbors, particularly Georgia and also Ukraine, and the position of those that the Russian nation, the Russian state, Putin, and the government in Russia seeks to or feels it needs to protect in these territories, and the geopolitics thereof. Then we're going to switch gears somewhat. We're going to look at the global war on terror, and we're reading two really terrific books, both of which are also available as audiobooks. Patrick Porter's book, The Global Village Myth, which came out recently, and Joseph Masco's book, The Theatre of Operations. And here we're going to look at the geographies of the global war on terror and a critique of the presumption that distance doesn't matter anymore in terms of strategy. And then also look at the ways in which certain geographic understandings were created around the global war on terror and what those enabled. Finally, we're going to look at the whole question of the border, which of course is a big one in the wake of the US presidential election. We're looking at Rhys Jones's book, Border Walls, which came out in 2012, which is a fairly small book, and that's why there's 3 in this particular section. So it's this book, and then Wendy Brown's kind of theoretical speculative work, Wall States Waning Sovereignty, which is in some ways a remarkable precursor and anticipation of the politics of Donald Trump. And then we're going to end with Louise Amour's book, The Politics of Possibility, which seeks to look at the ways in which the whole issue of border and the global war on terror are creating new forms of the management of risk in our society. So all of these things promise to make our course an extremely interesting one that's very, very relevant to the contemporary affairs, and so I hope that you will find it of interest. I will provide video lectures which explain these books, and I will do my best to make sure that they're accessible to you and that you're going to be able to grasp the arguments that are made here. All right, so thank you very much.